knowledge and said, oh, you got this wrong and this needs to be corrected. So, hey, that's what young people are for. Help you out when you need it. Yes.
Got it.
You could send them over to me. I need some help.
Hey, I certainly will. I tell you, I was desperate. I said, my goodness, what did I do wrong?
And you've been fighting that ever since you got the new computer.
Yes, I tell you, something I set up wrong over here, but it's working out. So good to see and hear everyone.
Yes.
Agreed.
It's been a while.
It has. It's nice to be back.
Yes.
Well, and Marshall, if I could bother your ear for just a moment, do we have everybody over as a panelist, or are we ready to roll?
It does look like you do.
Okay.
Just one. I'm just looking at that participant view.
Okay, good deal.
Good evening, everyone. If you can hear me, my video is not working. I'm trying to get it to come up, so I guess I got some technical difficulties. I'm using a new computer this evening, and I'm out of town, so I guess something's going on.
Okay.
We can hear you.
Okay,
Fair enough.
good.
Yes,
All
we
right.
can hear you.
All right.
And just a note, Amy, I think Ryan was trying to move you over as a panelist, but it looks like you declined. So he'll try one more time, but if you don't accept the change to panelist, you will not be able to speak.
Okay. Lee's trying to get on. She's having some difficulties.
Shirley, who's trying to log on?
Ophelia Lee.
Okay, thank you.
I think I saw her name at one point and then it went away.
Mm-hmm.
So Amy's here. I was able to see Amy. Okay.
Okay, yes, I can see her.
Hello?
Hello, Amy, we can hear you.
I can't.
Can you hear us? Okay, it looks like she may have popped away again. While they go ahead and work out technical difficulties, I think it is 6:06 p.m., so we need to go ahead and get moving. So with that, I just want to say a quick thank you to all of you for joining us this evening. For those of you in the audience, thank you for joining us to witness our proceedings this evening.
Recording in progress.
It's good to see all of your faces again today. With that, I will go ahead and toss to Madam Chair, Ms. Williams, if you will conduct a roll call for us.
Absolutely. Allison Clark.
Present.
Ann Phillips.
Present.
Jacqueline Rainey.
Present.
Chief Tyus. I thought he was here. Sean Billingsley.
Present.
Amy Taylor. Amy was here.
She was. I think she's having some technical difficulties, but I think they're working to get her in.
Okay, I still say she's here. Okay. Sharon Williams here. Ann Phillips. Again, you're in here twice for some reason.
Okay.
Just double fabulous. It's good to be you. Alice Turner. No. Shirley Nichols.
Here.
Patricia Coe,
Here.
Ophelia Lee. I know she's working on trying to get in.
Yeah.
Okay, Lashandra,
Here.
Tori Tucker, Jerry Basin, Chief Macklemore.
Sorry, I should let you know that Jerry has a conflict this evening. She won't be joining us.
Okay, thank you.
I'm here, present.
Oh, thank you. So I know LaShawn is not going to be here, but Florence, Corin, is she on? For Larry Johnson?
I have not seen her yet, but I know she intends to join us. And this is a good point to make a note, Marshall, Marshall or Ryan, if you can look out for Florence Karam for Commissioner Johnson's office.
Can do that.
Thank you. Dustin Hillis. And Nicole resigned. So that's our role, and we have quorum.
Wonderful. Thank you very much.
Hey, I'm
Oh,
here.
Amy, can you hear? Good deal. We have you present and accounted for. We saw you when you came in the first time.
Okay, yeah, I was having a heck of a time getting in with audio and video at the same time. So,
We can see you.
okay, thanks.
Good deal. All right, ladies and gents, with that, we can move forward with adopting the agenda and approval of minutes. If we can take those as a package deal, I'd like to make a motion to adopt the agenda and approve minutes. Can I get a second?
Second, Pat Coe.
Okay. Are there any objections? All right, ladies and gents, we can move forward. Our agenda is adopted. Our minutes are approved. The next order of business today is addressing our meeting frequency. And I want to clarify that we will not actually present a motion today, but the motion will come forward in the coming weeks. Reason being is a resolution has already moved through the Public Safety and Legal Administration Committee that addresses the manner in which committee members are appointed to this committee, along with the frequency with which we meet, moving us from a monthly meeting to a quarterly meeting requirement. Again, that doesn't mean that we won't meet more frequently, but the requirement moves to a quarterly meeting requirement. With that, it passed unanimously yesterday and we'll go through full council in the coming days. And so once that outcome is known, the motion will come forward to this committee to amend the bylaws consistent with the resolution. So I want everyone to be aware that that's on the table, and hopefully it makes life a little bit easier for everybody on the committee and the ability to fill vacancies as they come to us. That being said, we can move forward. Are there any questions relative to that before we move into the next item of the agenda? All righty, we can move forward into the infrastructure piece. This is really brought about by items we have previously discussed. We talked about necessary infrastructure improvements to support this project. And I want to make sure that we use today to follow up on those items. One of the items that we discussed prior to the LDP being, or I guess after the LDP, prior to the LDP being granted was the sidewalks along Key Road and the potential impact on specimen trees. We discussed this during one of our very recent meetings, and we want to get some follow-up on whether or not those specimen trees will be impacted by the sidewalk, if there's an opportunity to proceed with a variance, as we discussed, what that picture really looks like in order to potentially protect those trees, but still allow for the necessary sidewalks. And then the other piece that stands before us is the intersection of Key Road and Fayetteville Road, where we were looking for either a three-way stop, a flashing light, which Amy, I would certainly want to hear from you and the Starlight Heights community on the impact of a flashing light, if that's going to be disruptive or not, but also a three-way stop, a crosswalk, something that allows people to be able to move safely through that area. So with that, I will ask if the development team is able to address any of the items that I just put before you all.
Yes, Madam Chair. Hey, can you hear me? This is Alan Williams.
I certainly can.
Pardon me if I'm sound stuffed up because I've had these allergies for the last 6 weeks. I can't seem to get rid of it, but it's been a tough season. Just talk about the sidewalks just a little bit. During our land disturbance permit review with transportation, they required 3 items along the right of way. Street lighting, which we've got a contract with Georgia Power to put in street lights. The second one was street trees, which we've got designed so many feet, there's going to be street trees. And the third item was a sidewalk, and it consisted of 2 different options from what I remember. It could be a bicycle path, then a little bit of green space, and then a standard sidewalk that runs along in the right of way. Or you had the option to use a 10-foot wide multi-use path. So that's what we did. We laid that out, engineers laid it out, and you can see it going along the roadways there. Because, our property is bounded by Constitution on the south and then the Fayetteville Key Road on the west and kind of heading towards the north. So as we were laying the sidewalk out and taking a look at it, and, you do things and then you try to circle back and say, okay, what did the committee say? What were some of their concerns with this project? And so we started thinking about that. And one of the things I remember is the buffer. Anywhere there was a residential area, they wanted a minimum 100-foot buffer, which I think the master planner did a great job on that. And for some reason, I remember that as you're riding down the road, I think some of the committee members liked the way the vegetated state looks on the banks and the buffer. As you're riding down Fayetteville Road or Key Road, some of these new subdivisions or whatever, you'll clean them all up and make them little with the sidewalks and the trees and kind of look planned. I think some of the I forgot who the committee members were, but they talked about trying to leave it in its natural vegetative state. So I got a challenge to the committee. This is not a critical path item that has to be done tomorrow, but I've been on site pretty much every day for a while. And as I ride by, if you can imagine coming up from Old Constitution Road, up Fayetteville, right before it intersects with Key Road on the south side on the City of Atlanta property, there's an old house there that needs to be torn down, but there's also 4 specimen trees. There's actually 5 that 4 would be removed and 1 would be impacted. And I think the challenge to this committee is, let's go take a look at it and see what you guys think, and I'll help facilitate it and see if there's any way that this team can kind of save those specimen trees. Just because there's a requirement in the DeKalb County and the Transportation Department that says, it needs to be in the right of way, it needs to be here, it needs to be this. If you take a look at the trees that are there, big, beautiful trees, and also the grade changes there. And some of the grades are a 2-to-1 slope, some are a little steeper. And then as you come on down, going, I guess we'd call east on Key Road, where the ponds are. And we've had our stream buffer and pond buffers flagged. There's pink ribbons there that the DeKalb County requirement is 75 feet from the bank of a stream or the pond is a buffer. The state is 25 feet. So DeKalb is 3 times the requirement of the state. So there's the pond, I guess you would call it the northern edge of the pond, right there adjacent to Key Road. We got a challenge there too, where our sidewalk comes in and actually gets in the stream buffer. And then if everybody remembers that little parking area that the community, our committee had requested kind of a trailhead there. We staked the limits of that parking out a while back, and it's also encroaching in certain areas. So I think the challenges are the sidewalk. We know it's got to be there. We got 4 beautiful specimen trees. We've got a pond, the stream buffers. I'd like to challenge the committee, and there's some other slides there of the street view. If anybody wants to get involved with this, and let's make it a project, and I'll help facilitate it. And I think the committee's got to take it back to the county to get some kind of variance. But can you just get has anybody got any feedback or any thoughts on that, the situation?
Well, I say challenge accepted in terms of getting us out there and trying to figure out how we can work around it. I think that when we all spoke about it here of late, it was something that most committee members jumped behind. So I would certainly love to see if others are interested in getting out there and trying to iron that out. I see Sharon, your hand is raised, as well as Sean Billingsley. So we will move in that order.
Great.
I'd
Yeah,
also be very interested in being in on that.
Okay, hang tight, Amy. The floor is Sharon's.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's okay. So yeah, number one, I'd like to be part of that conversation. And then two, I think we do need to get out there, whoever can. I just need to be able to visualize it. And the other question I have is the specimen trees, can they be replanted elsewhere? Is that a viable option?
No, Amy, Sharon, I'm sorry. Madam Chair, can I answer that question?
Absolutely.
Okay, they're huge trees. You can't relocate them. I mean, the best thing to do is to see where they're at and try to see what other options are to work around them.
Okay, thank you.
They're huge. They're big trees.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Sean, the floor is yours, sir.
Okay, thank you. Alan, I know exactly what you're speaking of, that house. And that house, I would agree with you. It needs to be kind of torn down. And those trees, very huge. Now, my other question is, I know you said with the crosswalks. Now, is there a way with the crosswalks we can possibly bring those crosswalks down Boulder Crest also? Hello?
Yes, Sean, if I can jump in, I think that there's absolutely an opportunity, but I think that's a question for DeKalb County. And so it's something that I think should happen and that should be requested, but I think that because it doesn't buffer this project.
Okay, well, let me bring it down. Is there a way that we can buffer like a crosswalks with the lights where we have pedestrian lights coming down Key Road or Constitution, where we can have that portion also with the blind spots? Because we have plenty of blind spots where we're going to have citizens coming across Key Road or Constitution, Fayetteville, where we can have it where it'll be a safety issue, where we can have it where if we have some of those issues, some of those pedestrian lights where you stop and they flash everything else, other places in the city, is there a way we can have those same lights placed up also within those areas? Because we're going to level out some parts of Key Road and have sidewalks, people are going to step off, want to cross the street. We should also have it where they cross over also and have those lights if possible.
Fair enough. I think that's certainly something that we have to ask as we move through the process and perhaps as we get out there onto the site and have an opportunity to evaluate the opportunities for those crosswalks. We should, but those of us living around here in particular that will be moving through, I think, Sean, you're 100% right. We absolutely have to advocate for opportunities to be able to safely cross these streets, which is specifically why that intersection of Key and Fayetteville have been brought up, because that is the primary residential crossing area along Key Road, at least. But investigating Constitution and ultimately Boulder Crest, I think has to happen.
Yes. Okay, that's all I have.
Absolutely. Alan, did you have anything to weigh in on that as well?
Well, I that's a good point Sean brought up. We're talking about the intersection of Key Road and Fayetteville, but maybe everybody comes up with their ideas on the entire stretch of Key and Fayetteville, and maybe get somebody from the county and transportation to come out and try and see what the options are for that road.
It's a good way to move. Absolutely. Amy, I know that you had a question as well. And then after you, Amy, we will move to Shirley Nichols.
I don't have questions. On the volunteer for the site visit to go out and determine how we can best protect the trees.
Absolutely. Your name is written down. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay. Yeah, I want to be in on the tree conversation also. Also, I just kind of want to throw in, instead of like a light or a stop at Fayetteville, could we possibly put in a roundabout instead? Because there's a lot of traffic that comes down here during, rush hour times in through here. And I think any kind of stop action is going to back it up pretty well. So I think something along the lines that's going to keep the flow going down Key is going to be the best. Maybe just a stop at Fayetteville, where Fayetteville comes into Key, might be a better idea. But just I think we need to keep Key flowing as far as the traffic goes.
I think it's certainly something to investigate. I think the challenge, and this is me as a non-expert, but as someone who Pat and I have worked together on projects, including easeabouts and roundabouts in other communities, and the amount of land required to do something like that will probably require that, it encroaches on the surrounding properties. So that might be a bit of a challenge to accomplish. I think one of the big challenges is if you are on Key Road and you're making that left-hand turn onto Key Road, you have Fayetteville coming up from the south.
Yeah, that's why I'm saying.
And it's very blind.
Yeah, he's got to stop there like that.
Right.
Maybe a three-way stop is the way to go. And as far as that abandoned property goes, I don't know who owns it, but maybe we need to find out who owns that property and see what kind of options we get out of talking to that person. If that person would be willing to, sell it or do something with it or easement or something.
Alan, do you all already have any traction on who owns that property or what the status is there?
Is that on the corner there, Amy, right across?
Yeah, the one that we see in the lower right-hand picture where the cops like to sit.
Oh yeah, no, I don't know anything. Marshall may know, but I don't know. Yeah.
Okay. Marshall, are you able to weigh in on that?
Yeah, is the question, do we know who owns that property? I do not know who is the owner of that property. And again, up until my knowledge, I don't believe there's been any conversation about that particular property or who owns it or anything like that.
Well,
Okay.
am I mistaken in that's the property that someone was just asking about?
No, that's probably the old ranch style house that's up on the city property, Amy, near the specimen tree.
Oh, okay. I misunderstand then. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that one. Okay.
Right.
I'm sorry, my bad.
No worries. I see Miss Pat Culp, you have your hand raised.
Yeah, I was just looking at this, and I think probably the roundabouts probably wouldn't be sufficient for this area, because we're dealing with roundabouts similar to this, and it really took us about 2 years to get them, and they still, just slowly putting them in. We have 2 that are being worked on now, but it looks like maybe a 4-way stop as with a blinking light or something like that will probably be adequate for that area. And would you add me to the list of just going out on the site? Because when you get on the site, you can probably assess it a lot better than just sort of seeing what's happening here. But the transportation department will be the ones that we would have to present this to and see, how they can assess what needs to be done here.
Absolutely. You are added to the list, and anyone on this committee that is interested in attending, you are more than welcome to. We just need to know ahead of time so we can plot this out. And Pat, I agree with you. Having an expert on site to be able to evaluate what can and cannot happen there. I think one of the key asks is actually of you, Amy, on this committee would be getting feedback from your community, because the direct impact of a flashing light, that impact would be on your comfort at home as well. And so I don't want to get an idea of what that impact would look like for you all by the time we get out to meet there. With that, I see Sharon, your hand is up.
Yeah, so just in addition to county transportation, would it be helpful to have state transportation there as well? And I'm really genuinely asking. I'm not sure if they would add value.
Because they don't deal with.
The only thing that I see is we're not dealing with any state routes.
Right.
So I don't know that there's any benefit in having them there. Then again, I'm always someone who says more people at the table with their input is not a bad thing. But I don't think they would be able to influence it. The most they would probably be able to do is provide some level of understanding of engineering, traffic engineering.
Yeah, I was looking for traffic engineering expertise, and it depends on what the county had.
Fair enough. It's worth the ask. Amy, your hand is raised.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, right off the bat, I just want everybody to keep in mind that I'm fairly certain that Key gets more traffic than Fayetteville does. And I really don't want to see it become a traffic clog more than it already is.
Let me ask you something really quickly. When you're referring to Key getting more traffic, are you referring to the residential section of Key, or are you referring to the portion that goes down along the training center?
Yeah, from Moreland to my
Okay.
house to Key to the training center, that's where the traffic tends to go. I almost never see anybody come from Fayetteville side.
Sure, but if you consider now, there's a stop sign there now. So for that direction, nothing changes. It is adding a traffic or adding some traffic calming measure along Fayetteville and Key on the other, where Fayetteville turns into Key Road. So now you've got two other directions also stopping that are not stopping currently.
Well, there's a stop sign if you're coming from Moreland to Fayetteville.
Correct.
There's a stop sign there. And then is there not a stop sign at Fayetteville where it comes into Key? No.
So people traveling along Fayetteville Road do not stop. Right. And people traveling in the opposite direction, because when you're coming from the opposite direction, you're on Key Road. Those individuals do not stop. Right now, the only stop is on your section of Key Road. Right. And so to the degree that we're talking about a traffic backup, that stop already exists. So it doesn't change the flow on your street.
Right. I don't want to see something go in that would clog it up more than it already does sometimes.
Fair enough. Well, we won't make them stop double.
Thanks.
But definitely, I think we all need to get out there and actually evaluate that and see what that looks like. So, Alan, if you are willing to help coordinate that, it would be greatly appreciated. This is something that came up at one of our past meetings, and did not want to allow this to slip under the radar. Make sure that we get out there and cover it.
Anytime. I'm out there every day, and I can work anybody's schedule, even weekends. Someone wants to go on a weekend.
Okay. Fair enough. Then I will get a doodle out to the committee and see if we can't make this work in the next couple of weeks here and get us out there.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you.
In the meantime, I'll try to get some input.
Thank you much.
From my neighborhood.
Thank you, Amy. With that, we can move forward into the construction update. And I will toss to the development team to bring that. Tony, Bree.
Yes, hello everyone. I'm Bree Caldwell. I'm with Da Vinci Development. First of all, the design team and APF, we all want to give a really big thank you to Atlas Technical Consultants and Long Engineering for all of their amazing work that they provided on this project. They have currently concluded their work, but we appreciate their contribution. We actually, all the preparation and everything they've done, we've really has set us up for, to move with a very high progress and streamline this project. So they've been very valuable, and they've been a great team to work with. What you're seeing now is just a very high level construction update. As you know, there's a lot of activity on the site. We received our LDP at the end of January. We've gotten our site contractors on the site. They are currently doing clearing and grubbing right now. We have been doing a lot of erosion control measures, which we'll talk about a little later. But we are working, on the east side of the property and starting to move to the west side. And this is, again, just a high level construction schedule for you all to see.
And what's the delta, this presentation or this update versus the original timeframe?
Oh, that's a good question. It has been moving a lot. We really wanted to try to get this, I believe, Alan, if you can correct me, but it was going to be earlier in 2024. And hitting this date is always going to be, these are always moving targets that we're trying to get, trying to navigate through all of our challenges that we have. But I believe, and we can look that up and I can shoot it to Allison and Marshall as well to put in the minutes to see what our big change has been since any delays and any approvals that we've had on the project.
Yeah, I think I can answer this is John Goff, I will put through. The LDP.
John, we've got an echo coming when you're speaking. It's almost like I can hear you double.
Not sure how that is. Is it still echoing?
There we
That's
go.
better.
Is that better? Maybe for some, anyway, I was going to say the LDP process, DeKalb County was extraordinarily thorough in their LDP review of us. And normally this process would take maybe 4 months. And I think it took us about 11. So pretty much somewhere in that 6 months range, probably kind of the variance that we have. But you know, good for them for doing their homework and being very, very careful with the review. But I think to answer the question.
Yeah, I would say it's about 6 to 8 months, Carly.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for that, Sharon, and thank you for the response, Bree and John. Are there any additional questions? All righty, well, thank you very much. With that, we can move into the development team's update, and I just want to preface it by saying that you know, we had a desire to talk about some of the best management practices as well as some of the sustainability options for the property, but also something that I wanted to make sure we discussed today. Based on the feedback of this committee and having spoken with community members as well, is a concern for the impact this development would have relative to nighttime lighting, dark sky, et cetera. And I'm hoping that it's something that's been included today, but if you would, at some point during the presentation, if you can touch on that as well, we greatly appreciate it. With that, to the development team.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm going to talk just briefly about our erosion control plan and our best management practices. I think that's been on the focus of everyone on this committee and the community lately. You know, we went through an 11-month period for a land disturbance permit and 4 different reviews. And part of that review is, you know, a very, very detailed erosion control plan. And there's 4 phases to that plan. We're currently implementing phase 1. And that includes silt fence, which most of it is a double row silt fence, our tree save areas. We have our construction entrances, and then we have our inspections. We have an MPDES NOI, and that comes with different requirements also. I think the uniqueness of this project is we have so many feet, thousands of feet of double row silt fence. And, you know, when we are clearing a lot of the invasive species, as Bradford pears or whatever, are all ground up and mulched. And we actually put that mulch between the 2 rows of silt fence. And then we also spread it out underneath the tree canopy. And we're trying to keep all the grindings on site, you know, for the organic material. One thing we're doing above and beyond, you normally inspect your construction entrances daily and your other BMPs weekly. And we are doing the daily inspections on the construction entrances, but we are also doing daily inspections on all the remaining silt fence and berms. We're currently putting in berms and temporary sediment ponds as part of this phase 1 and getting them inspected. So we are doing daily inspections with some days with an outside third party, and then a lot of days I'm doing it myself. And I walked over 14,000 steps the other day. So there's miles of, and I need to walk those steps. I'm not complaining. I need to walk them. But anyway, I say that our inspections are going great, and we're making any repair we need to make. And our main goal is to keep any sediment from leaving our site. So that's any questions on our current program. I'll be glad to try to answer.
Alan's cardiologist is very, very happy about it.
Hey, I need it too. Yeah. Is there any questions on our current erosion control plan?
Thank you for that. I see Ms. Williams has her hand raised. The floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair, and I probably need to get out there and do those 14 steps with you, 14,000 steps. But in terms of your inspections, are there any kind of key findings? Is there anything that you're seeing in terms of erosion? Is there anything that's had to be course corrected?
Oh, well, during the protest on March 5th, they came up and destroyed about 2,000 feet of our erosion control. And I wish I had the statement there because they took credit for it and basically said that they tore it up and they knew that it had to get repaired. So we spent about 2 to 3 days repairing that. And that was mainly down in the Georgia Power easement there. So that's one thing. I tell you, a great thing about DeKalb County is I mentioned earlier that the stream buffer and the pond buffer is 75 feet. And so that's a great buffer to have when you're doing development.
Thank you. And thank you for noting that the damage. I didn't realize that they had torn down the fencing, because in a lot of the conversations I've just been listening to, there was so much concern around erosion and just kind of the irony that they're the people who tore it down. But thank you.
Well, another thing too, Sharon, is one of our, we've had probably 5 or 6 DeKalb County inspections. Some on plan, some on not planned. They just kind of came and inspected. And one of the inspection reports showed that some of our silt fence was down. And if you read a little further in that report, that was the easement silt fence that was torn down. And we waited a little while to go repair it.
I'm just listening. Come on.
What, till the site got more secure.
Understand. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Were there any additional questions? All right, ladies and gents. Alan, thank you for that. I will, am I tossing back to you, Alan, or?
Thank you. Talking about the architect, I believe.
Okay.
You sure you don't want to take this one, Alan?
Good to see you again, Tony.
Good to see you all after all this time. I really appreciate the time, Madam Chair, and appreciate Alan's time as well, as he's not feeling well, but he has done an amazing job. So John spoke to the 11 months of the LDP, and without Alan being out there and doing all the work that he's done, we could not have gotten to this point. So I'm just going to talk a little bit today about things we probably already discussed. But I want to make sure that we understand that this process has gone on for almost 1.5 years. And it has been a process of working with this committee, as well as working a lot behind the scenes. And there have always been things on our mind throughout the design process. And we started really early in schematics with an integrative approach. And that's basically saying that we're not just going to do this work on our own and hand it to you and say, here's what you get. What we decided to do was we brought everybody to the table at the start. That included the owner, that included stakeholders, that included our engineers, especially our lead team, kind of leading this process to make sure that we are designing with all of these things in mind. That led us to, like, when you look at an item like location and transportation became integral to us. And even though DeKalb County was not requiring EV vehicles and charging stations and future EV on this site, it was decided that we would go forward with that, and we would definitely include EV charging on the site, and also think about the future of the fire department and police department as they go forward with EV vehicles. It was very important when we looked at the site. We've talked a lot about it in these meetings in the past, how we chose certain places that happened, certain places of the site. So we did inordinate site assessments. We did a lot to preserve and protect what we could. And in terms of light pollution, I'm glad that you asked that, Allison. We have a couple of slides to talk about it a little bit. And our thinking right from the start was to decrease light pollution. So this particular project, we have a site design currently underway with the associate help of Georgia Power working with us. And I'm going to talk a little bit about things like bug rating and glare and things like that a little bit later. We did as well want to discuss innovation on this project. So we didn't want this to just be a boilerplate project that you took off the boards. So it has a lot of creative things in it with the MEP system, as well as a renewable energy source by using photovoltaics on the roof. Indoor environmental control, I think that is something that goes unstated, but anybody that works in an office still and goes into the office 40 hours a week or more knows that if things stink, if the air quality is not good, if the light is not good, it's a bad day. I mean, you know, some of us talk about, you know, getting to Fridays and just feeling, our eyes just feel worn out, and that, I mean, that is associated with the environment that we're in. So our indoor environmental quality, we'll speak to it a little bit in following slides. So if we just go ahead a little bit, and we'll start by going into and delving into how we do energy overall. So energy consumption is something that we think about from the start of the project. We look at it a couple different ways. We look at it in terms of dollars, and we look at it in terms of percentage of energy use. And our goal for the project is not to give the standard building that would be designed to whatever the MEP standards are for the day that just meets whatever the code minimums are. What we say is we want to reduce energy consumption in our buildings. We want to do it by a certain percentage, and we always have that goal in mind. We give our engineers that goal right from the start, and we have them work towards it. So in the end, it is a win-win. Some people don't think of it that way, but if you are doing these things up front through your design process, you're saving money in the end. And this was a very, very early on energy study. I mean, this was probably in the first 6 months. We'll have to do another energy model like this based on our final design, but that will be coming in the future weeks. So if you go forward, we'll talk a little bit about lighting inside the building. This was the one I just spoke of. So we know we have spaces inside of this building that we want daylight. We want natural light to be in those spaces. We also have spaces like the lecture hall in the leadership building where we didn't want a lot of natural light. You're going to have a lot of screen displays, projection. So this is how we studied light intensity and where it was going to get into the building. As you go forward in the next slide, you'll see that we also did the same thing for the leadership building. This is obviously talking about savings and also energy use reduction and always trying to hit our goals. They're difficult, lofty goals. We could not get to net zero on this project, but we did our best in a lot of different areas. And daylighting here was very important because this is basically the classroom building. Mm-hmm. So there are not only offices in this building, but if you look at the next slide in the second floor, we're talking about a significant floor plate that is receiving natural light into the classrooms. We wanted to make sure that we got light into all of those classrooms where we could. On the next slide, we will again talk about site assessment. We've talked about this. I went back and I think it was 5 meetings. We've had some semblance of this slide up, but I wanted to talk about it again and just have a general discussion about how much work went into the site analysis. We are very thankful to this group as well in talking about how we analyze a site, and it obviously is reflected in what we ended up with in the final master plan. We did exhaustive studies on what the existing site was and what topography was, and we put the buildings where they made the most sense. If you go to the next slide, we have a little bit of discussion about this light pollution idea. And what we've done is we have chosen specific fixtures in and around the site. Again, we're in the midst of working with Georgia Power on making sure that we have fixtures that are rated properly so that we don't have, these fixtures don't have any backlight, I don't believe. And we're trying to reduce all the glare. The goal, obviously, is that you would have a better night sky rating so that you would be able to just think of it as, if you try to look up in a Target parking lot, you're not going to see a lot. But we don't want that. We want to be here and have light rating where you actually look up and you can see night skies. We are in the midst of doing a photometric study for the entire property and making sure that we're not getting any light intrusion off of the property. And I think in the next slide, that was a interim study that Georgia Power did on their lighting on the next slide. But we are currently in another phase of that as we have selected our fixtures now. How I always know this is an interim study is that big square in the middle of the property is the skills pad. So that's a place where fire department will test their ladder trucks, make sure their recruits can drive, and Georgia Power put their light poles in the middle of that pad. Although that would probably be a good obstacle course but somebody driving a ladder truck might not appreciate that very much. So that's how I always know. So we've had them go back to the drawing board. We are working on that, and we'll get to a finalization in the coming months. In the next slide. So what we have done in design of our landscaping is we have reduced or eliminated irrigation in all but one location. The only location that we have is the training field. And that's important because that's both a training field for the center as well as a public field for the weekends. We knew that. We didn't want that to become a mud pit. We didn't want that to not get any grass. But the rest of the landscaping in and around the buildings is chosen for its lack of irrigation. On the next slide, one of the things that we have done is we have worked with a couple different agencies right now in the intent to reduce our carbon footprint on this building and producing any greenhouse gas emissions. So what we've done is we have worked with a couple companies to plan for PV on the roof. And we'll be putting our solar panels up, not in this exact array, but in a similar array to what you see here, and producing energy for our project as opposed to pulling from a carbon resource. We also, in terms of energy, on the next slide, we have definitely chosen to go with an EV solution for the property. So we have EV spaces sprinkled throughout the site, including a bunch of spaces in the training facility for future vehicles, although they don't have them now. And the last one, I think, is just the demolition waste debris. This is something that not all of your construction sites will do. You see a lot of dumpsters out there, and as construction goes on, they just throw everything away, take everything to the landfill. That has been something we have made a significant goal for this project, is not to do that. So our non-hazardous construction and demolition debris will be reduced by 50%. So less material going to the landfill. I think we may have talked about that in the past, but this is really a commitment by this development team. And Madam Chair, that is it. I appreciate your time. Thank you all so much. If you have any questions, I can certainly take those.
Absolutely. Thank you, Tony, for that. And I appreciate that you gave consideration to the lighting and dark sky. I know I threw that out there, something that has been very important to the committee, and we've kind of touched on this a little bit ahead of the meeting. So I appreciate you taking the time to incorporate that this evening. I see Amy, your hand is raised, so the floor is yours.
Hi, Tony. So am I to understand that we're going to have training going on at night where a lot of lighting will be necessary?
I would have to direct any questions about the training to APD, as I'm not familiar with exactly what they have planned.
Okay, so maybe another question for you then would be, are you considering using lighting that's not going to interfere with the natural resources, as in bats and owls and nighttime animals?
We are considering that. So that's the great thing about bug rated fixtures, is their amount of reduction that they have on the ground plane that they hit. The other great thing that we have going for us, so we have a lot of, I think we've talked about in the past, we have a lot of topography difference between Fayetteville Road and like the EVOC course, which you actually, I think this team brought to us and had a concern. But because we have that 100-foot buffer all the way along Fayetteville Road and Key Road, we're not talking about just a clear-cut area from the road to the actual EVOC course. But I think the overall training will have to be something that I'm not familiar enough with. The APD forces would have to answer that.
Thank you.
And Amy, just to circle back real quick, since Marshall is on the call, I don't know if you're positioned to be able to answer that, or if we need to wait until we have Chief Tyus available, but I think we may be able to answer Amy's initial question. Marshall?
Yep, Chief Tyus is actually coming over from the other room right now.
Okay, not a problem. Amy, if you'll hang tight, and if you're willing to repeat in just a second, we can actually get you an answer, hopefully.
Sure.
All right, in the meantime, Ms. Jacqueline Rainey, the floor is yours.
I wanted to know, you were speaking about the material possibly being recycled. Is there a risk of your having lead paint or old wiring and stuff like that in the material? Sometimes it takes longer to separate things like that than it does to just throw it away, haul it and throw it away.
Alan, did you want to speak to that? I mean, luckily on this particular project, we have new construction. You're not getting into that danger, but I know Alan's, being the construction veteran that he is much more familiar with the construction debris process than I am.
Okay.
No, we won't have any of those materials, not with new construction.
No, I mean the things that you all were saying you were recycling.
Oh, well, the main areas we're recycling is steel, and that's pretty much it. And any concrete that goes back to the recycler on that.
Okay. All right.
Perfect. And I see that Chief Tyus is here now. So Amy, I'm going to circle back to you so that we can get your question answered. And then Sharon, I see that your hand is raised. Chief Tyus, can you hear us?
I can hear you. Good evening, everyone. Thanks for allowing me to join you again. Yes, Amy, so to answer your question, we do have night firing. We don't have it that often. The lights really will assist us doing daylight saving times when it gets dark earlier at night. And we do have officers out shooting at like 6 p.m. or 7 p.m. in the evenings, and it's dark during that time. But we will have some night firing because we do have really our special weapons and tactics unit. They do fire at night, but that's only a few times a year. So it will not be a lot of night firing.
Okay, is there going to be like other training going on at night? And if so, what, like, is there going to be a point, like say, 8, 9 o'clock where operations will cease in the training, where those of us that live around here can expect to enjoy just our peace and quiet as we know it?
Absolutely, Amy. 90% of our training is done in the afternoon, just like the officers want to leave and go home in the evenings also. So most of what we have ends around 5 o'clock, except for those few occasions when we do have evening and late night training. But for the most part, our training academy is really a 9 to 5 as far as the police side of the house goes.
Okay, cool. Now, as far as those special occasions, is there some kind of notification we can get so we can be aware of those and not think that someone is civilian fire around here and we're calling 911 and all the things that we would normally do?
Absolutely. They will continue to go out much in the manner in which they're going out right now. We will send them to the designated leaders well in advance and allow them to know when we are firing. I think we just sent one out last week, as a matter of fact, and we got some questions as to what we were doing. But anytime we're firing at night, we try to be mindful of that, and we try to give you at least 4 to 5 days notice on that.
Okay, well, I have not received any notice that way. So maybe we need to revisit how that happens.
I can tell you as of now for my community, our HOA receives those notices with the existing range.
Well, we don't have an HOA.
Well, I understand that. And if you'll recall, several months back, I worked through having Nicole assigned as the contact for your community. I don't know how you all are handling that internally with the structure in your community right now, but what I can say is to the degree that notifications go out, those messages have been sent forth that needs to take place. I have not seen anything here of late, but I also know there hasn't been range use in the way that there was prior. So I think we can certainly revisit that, but I also think that a new protocol would need to be established with the new training center.
Yeah, well, I guess since I'm the default representative in place of Nicole, maybe I should be the one. I mean, doesn't matter to me. I'm just saying maybe instead of Nicole, maybe let me know and then I can let everybody else know.
Absolutely. I think as long as we know where these things need to go, makes it a little bit easier to share the information out, and you don't have to have an organized HOA. I think that the surrounding communities have always been able to receive notifications so long as they signed up to do so.
Or my
Your
dog
sounds like my dog.
My dog can sound the alarm.
It does sound like it. That sounds like my guy just a little while ago. It's the way it goes sometimes.
Sorry, everybody. Sorry. I do have some more questions, but we'll let everybody else who's got their hand raised have a turn.
Yes, let's give the floor to those who have not had an opportunity to speak, and then we can circle back. I know, Sharon, you've been waiting for a little while now, so the floor is yours.
Yeah, Amy had some good questions though. So just to follow up on something she was asking about curriculum, this was also supposed to be a community space as well. So it's conceivable that there could be community events that take place after 5 p.m. And I was also just thinking about just for office lighting, they tend to light their buildings at night so that they're not all dark. So that's how I was just kind of interpreting some of their night lighting efforts. And so as I was looking at some of the optimization calculations, I think they were comparing their building to like the average or maybe lower quartile. Is there a way that you can compare your, let's see, your file design, you're going to calculate another lead calculation. Could we do it somehow in quartiles so we can see where we are? The last report we saw, I think the lead score was silver, but I had no idea, was it a high silver? Was it low? How far are we from gold?
We can definitely give you an update. We have not submitted for design review to USGBC yet. We're planning to doing that here in the next month or so. They will probably take a 30 to 60 day process to review that, and then they'll come back to us with where we landed. I think right now, if I remember correctly, we're right in between the, I think it's 50 to 59 points for silver, and I think we were in that middle range. So I don't think we're close enough to get gold, but you never know. I certainly don't think we're going to drop to a point where we would not get silver.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Good deal. Thank you. Great questions too. Is there anyone else with any questions? Okay, Amy, it looks like it's back to you. You didn't have to raise your hand, I know. Go for it. The floor is yours.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Question, Alan. I know there was supposed to be a supervisor appointed to the development. Do we know, did we have that appointment filled, and is that person from DeKalb, or where is that person?
Can you explain that question again? Because I don't understand it.
Okay, the Superior Court judge specified that you have a environmental supervisor on the site?
No, that's not true. That's not true. Did somebody send you that question to ask, and maybe you can ask them to
No, but that's my question.
No, the court order, are you talking about Fulton County?
Yeah.
Fulton County said we should do daily erosion control inspections until the appeal. And we did do that.
Okay. I'll go back and review.
Thank you both. And one thing that I need to do in the interest of full transparency is just to make sure that it is known that Amy is a party to the appeal that was filed. And so as we talk about this, I want to make sure that we always, in the space of transparency, know that that is what's at, part of what's at play here. Not to say that your question is out of line by any means, because it's not. It's a question that you have, but I think that as this committee moves forward, and one thing that was brought forth by ethics is that we do need to disclose that as we move down that path if we have discussions that are relative to any of those proceedings. With that, I do see Sharon, your hand is raised. I'm going to circle back to you in just a second. Was there anyone else that had a question that has not yet had the floor? All right, Sharon, the floor is yours.
Just a quickie on a point of information. So when we were talking about the erosion strategies, we went into it in detail. And I thank all the consultants on the phone for getting into that level of detail. But one of the things I specifically asked, just because of some of the misinformation that's out there, is was there anything notable in any of the inspections? And again, just to iterate, the only thing that was notable was that the eco-terrorists or the anarchists, whatever you want to call them, they're the ones that tore the silk fence down, which is contrary to their goals and everything that they're talking about. So again, and I think it was Alan that clarified for us that they put those silk fences back up once they were secure and that the officers were able to do that. So I think the daily inspections are noted. They said that they're doing them. They also have a third party that's doing them. And that the only notable instance is when the protesters, or whatever you'd like to call them, tore that stuff down. That's my only point of information, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you very much for that. I appreciate that clarification. And I also will say that to the degree that, Amy, if you want to discuss any of those items, I think we end up in a kind of a legal space that we can't really touch during our meeting, but I do understand where you're coming from. And Sharon, I also understand, we've learned a little bit about the backstory in terms of what happened with the silt fencing tonight. So I appreciate both of you for raising your issues. Are there any additional questions?
Can I just reply on that? I tried to be PC about my question. Alan didn't understand my question, so I tried not to put too fine a point on it, but in order to give him clarification, I needed to do that. So that I was trying to save everybody on that. I wasn't trying to be disruptive at all, and I don't feel like we need to go into any further discussion. I think it's fully applicable to this committee that we know that the appropriate inspectors are on board and that they are in place. And that was my only question.
The question is not the challenge, it's just the disclosure. And so we have been informed that to the degree that there is any content brought to this meeting relative to any of the legal actions that have been taken, that there needs to be disclosure in the interest of transparency. So that is not a knock to say that you cannot ask the questions. It is not a knock to say that your question is wrong. It is just to say that we have to include that disclosure, which is something that was discussed prior to this meeting. So with that, do we have any questions for the development team about what was presented? Okay. With that, I think we can move forward into the security update. I believe Chief Tyus, will you be providing our security update today?
As always, ma'am, I sure will.
Thank you much. The floor is yours.
No worries. So I think everyone know around the middle of February, we started occupying that site 24/7. So since then, we've been in a mode of protecting equipment as well as individuals out there. We have officers on different shifts out there. And so during the day, we have officers spread out strategically throughout the entire footprint out there. And then at night, we just kind of rally them up to a certain rally point, and we really go into a posture of just protecting the equipment. Since we've been out there full time, we have not had any significant issues out there at the site. We do see the occasional drone fly over by whoever. Obviously, it's free airspace, so there's not a lot we can do about that. But as far as individuals coming out there being disruptive, we have not seen any individuals on that site. So we continue to make good headway out there on that site, and knock on wood, we haven't had any issues thus far. So are there any questions for me?
Thank you for that. The floor is open for questions. Please raise your hand if you'd like to take the floor. Sharon?
Just a quickie. I just wanted to thank all the consultants, engineers, architects on the phone today. Really good content. I'm glad we're reconnecting and getting on path that progress is being made. Thank you.
Chief Tice, I have a question for you.
So go right ahead.
Hey, yes, my name is Sean Billingsley, and so this is a question that I have from some of the police officers that are around the site. So when some of the protesters come, are our officers allowed to engage with the officer, or do they have to call the state patrol or DeKalb County?
No, sir, that is a myth. Those officers out there do have the ability to engage anyone that approaches them as they would anywhere else in the city. We are out there with the blessings of the DeKalb County Police Department. So we are acting under the color of law anytime we engage citizens out there.
Okay, that's all I wanted to ensure. That was my only question, because I just didn't want that to get out. That's the only question that I had.
Yes, sir. I think that was a misconception at the beginning because that site is in DeKalb County. But prior to us putting any Atlanta police officers out there, our legal team worked through those hurdles. So our officers are on solid footing out there with any interaction with citizens.
Good deal. Thank you. Amy, I see your hand is raised. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Chief Tice, is there a requirement or any kind of regulations or anything regarding the blue lights at night? That the cars that are in and around the neighborhood should have their lights on and flashing at night?
So those officers generally have those lights on for two reasons, ma'am. They want the citizens to know that the police are in their neighborhood and that they are actively patrolling. And also it allows the other officers to know exactly where they are in that vicinity. But I mean, if there's an issue, are the lights strobing or it's just a solid blue light, ma'am?
Yes, I approached an officer sitting on the corner of Fayette and Key. He had his lights on and flashing at 4 a.m. I went out and I asked him to turn them off. And he did so. But the fact that I had to get up at 4 a.m. to ask someone to turn their lights off in a residential area, I was not a happy camper.
Yeah, unfortunately, when you ask them to turn them off, there are about 15 officers, 15 residents that come out there and thank the officers for being out there and tell them they feel safer with the officer riding around out there with the blue lights on. So we try to balance that. So I'm thankful that the officer did, respect your wishes and then turn the lights off at your request. But just know that residents approach those officers all the time, thanking them for being out there with those lights on.
That's not what I've heard, but okay.
Well, if it helps, I can speak to that. I'm one of the people that often thanks the officers, for being out there. I know that members of my community have requested a higher police presence in the area in light of some of the challenges that we've seen. And I know that there are people on both sides of the fence, even within my own community. Some like having them there, some don't like having them there. And I think that's exactly it. It's the split. And so, I'm not sure how your community falls in that, but I have seen the split amongst my own community members, seemingly with more leaning towards, favor towards having them out there in light of all of the recent activity at the site. So it does balance both ways.
I appreciate that, and everybody is totally entitled to their opinions and their feelings, and I totally respect that, as you and I have talked about before.
Sure.
I would request to Chief Tyus, if I don't want to bring this up in front of everybody, but I do have some issues I would like to talk with Chief Tyus about, if it's possible. And my dog, stop, get down. This is Wiley, everybody.
Hi.
Let's come get you.
Cutie pie.
Hi, Pop.
Fair enough. If you are interested in having an offline conversation, and Chief Tyus, if you can help facilitate that so that the two of you can maybe talk through some of the challenges that Amy may be experiencing, that would be helpful.
Yes, by all means. If you don't have my email address, I can send it to you, or Allison, if you'll facilitate it with giving her my email address and/or my city cell phone number, I'll be more than happy to talk to Amy.
Great. Thanks, Chief Tyus.
No worries. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you both for that. Very valuable to understand the impacts on differing perspectives throughout the community.
Mhm.
Are there any additional questions? All righty, easy peasy. Well, thank you, Chief Tyus, for your security update and for answering all of our questions.
As always, thank you all for having me, and enjoy the rest of your evening. I look forward to talking to you offline, Amy.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you about this.
And Amy, if you would just get with me after the meeting, I'll make sure to connect you to in the event that you don't have his information. Before we move on and adjourn the meeting, I just want to take a quick moment. Ryan, are you with us this evening? I think I see. There you are. Good evening, Ryan. Good to see you.
Evening. Good to see you as well.
I know all of you have seen Ryan on the emails and have not necessarily been formally introduced. So Ryan Smith is with the Atlanta Police Foundation and has been an absolutely integral part in moving our committee along. So just want to take a quick minute to recognize him and make sure that each of you know who he is and that he is here to help support our committee. Of course, we have Marshall as our committee administrator, and with his breadth of knowledge, working hand in hand with Ryan has been key. And so we have both of them as excellent resources for us to lean on as we move through this. So I just want to make sure that everybody has a face to the name. And you'll continue to see him on the emails, and please feel free to reach out to him throughout this process. Sorry, Ryan, you may get a lot more emails than you want.
It's okay. I honestly should have introduced myself earlier. I was just trying to get everybody logged in and stuff, and didn't want to hold up the meeting very much. But yes, hi, I'm Ryan. So if you need anything, just let me know.
Absolutely. Thank you. Well, with that, ladies and gentlemen, it has been absolutely wonderful to see your faces again. And I look forward to meeting with you all again very soon. If we don't have any objection to doing so, I would like to go ahead and make a motion to adjourn here at 7:16 p.m. if I can get a second. But wait a minute, I see Sharon, your hand.
Oh, I was saying yes. Adjourn.
Ah. I'm so tuned into thinking that it's a question. I will take that second. Ladies and gentlemen, 7:16 p.m. We are adjourned.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Have a great evening.
Bye-bye.
Recording stopped.